Remember when you could buy a gallon of milk without needing a small loan? The Impact Library remembers. These days, Americans are facing the harsh reality of inflation. Prices are soaring on everything from groceries to gas. That cheap vacation you were planning? Think again. Inflation is eating away at our paychecks, leaving many feeling like they're working more and getting less. This isn't just about tightening our belts, though. This is about the economy overheating, like a car about to blow a gasket. The Federal Reserve, in an attempt to cool things down, has been raising interest rates. Think of it like turning down the thermostat. But instead of just your house getting colder, the entire economy feels the chill. The big question is, can we get inflation under control without sending the economy into a tailspin? Because lurking in the shadows is a fear that's all too real for many Americans. The R word, recession. It's the word no one wants to hear, yet it's on everyone's mind. The economy, already wobbly from inflation, is showing signs of slowing down. Businesses are hesitant to hire. Consumer confidence is waning. It's like watching a game of Jenga, with each pulled block bringing us closer to a potential collapse. Economists are carefully watching key indicators like GDP growth and unemployment rates. These numbers tell a story, and right now, the story is one of uncertainty. A recession, if it hits, won't be felt equally by everyone. Some industries will be hit harder than others. Some people will lose their jobs, while others will struggle to make ends meet. But amidst the economic uncertainty, there's another story unfolding, one that highlights the fragility of our financial system. Silicon Valley Bank, a name synonymous with startups and tech innovation, collapsed in a matter of days. It was a financial earthquake that sent shockwaves through the economy. Suddenly, the tech industry, once seen as invincible, seemed vulnerable. The collapse exposed cracks in the financial system, raising questions about risk management and regulation. It served as a stark reminder that even in the digital age, the fundamentals of banking still matter. And it left many wondering, if a bank catering to tech giants could fail, what does that mean for the rest of us? The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, coupled with high inflation and recession fears, paints a picture of an economy in flux. The question now is, how did we get here and what happens next? Remember the early days of the pandemic? Empty grocery store shelves, panicked shoppers hoarding toilet paper, and the world grinding to a halt. The pandemic wasn't just a health crisis, it was an economic heart attack. Lockdowns and restrictions brought businesses to their knees, factories shut down, supply chains snapped, demand plummeted as people stayed home, uncertain of what the future held. This sudden stop in economic activity created a ripple effect felt around the world. Remember the Ever Given, that massive container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal? That was just a taste of the supply chain chaos. The pandemic exposed the fragility of our interconnected world. Suddenly, those Made in China stickers took on a new meaning. Factories in Asia struggled with lockdowns and labor shortages. Shipping containers piled up at ports, creating bottlenecks. It was like a giant game of Tetris. The result? Delays, shortages, and soaring shipping costs. Remember when you could order something online and have it delivered in 2 days? Those days seemed like a distant memory. The supply chain disruptions were a major driver of inflation. When goods are scarce and transportation costs skyrocket, prices inevitably follow suit. It was a perfect storm, and consumers were caught in the middle. As the pandemic raged, governments and central banks threw money at the problem. Lots of money. Think of it like putting out a fire with a fire hose. The Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to near zero, making borrowing cheaper. They pumped trillions into the financial system, essentially creating money out of thin air. The goal was to prevent economic collapse, and to some extent it worked. But there were side effects. All that extra money led to inflation. If everyone has more money to spend but the supply remains the same, prices go up. It's a delicate balancing act. Central bankers are still grappling with it. How do you support the economy without fueling inflation? It's a question with no easy answers. For everyday Americans, the economic turmoil translated into a simple but painful reality. Things were getting more expensive, and their paychecks weren't keeping up. Remember when you could fill up your gas tank for under $20? Or buy a dozen eggs without taking out a second mortgage? Those days seemed like a distant memory. Inflation was everywhere, eating away at people's savings and making it harder to make ends meet. The price of groceries soared, gas prices skyrocketed, rent and housing costs went through the roof. It was a perfect storm of economic pressures that left many feeling like they were drowning in debt. For those living paycheck to paycheck, it was a constant struggle just to keep their heads above water. The American dream, once a promise of prosperity and upward mobility, seemed increasingly out of reach for many. The economic anxieties of the pandemic were far from over. Faced with soaring inflation, the Federal Reserve had a tough choice to make. Do they keep interest rates low to support the economy, risking even higher inflation? Or do they raise rates to combat inflation, potentially triggering a recession? It was a classic case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. In the end, the Fed chose to fight inflation, even if it meant slowing down the economy. They started raising interest rates aggressively, hoping to cool down demand and bring inflation under control. Think of it like tapping the brakes on a speeding car, hoping to avoid a crash. But raising rates too quickly could backfire, pushing the economy into a recession. It's a delicate balancing act, and the stakes are high. The Fed's decisions will have a ripple effect on everything from mortgage rates to stock prices, impacting the lives of millions of Americans. Remember that feeling you get in your gut before a storm? The air gets thick, the sky darkens, and you just know something big is coming. That's what the fear of a recession feels like. It starts with whispers, a sense of unease that spreads like wildfire. Economists start throwing around terms like inverted yield curve. To the average person, it might sound like gibberish, but trouble is brewing. Businesses start tightening their belts. Hiring freezes become the norm. Consumers rein in their spending. The economy starts to rock. Will it weather the storm, or are we headed for a recession? Imagine the economy as a giant roller coaster. When it's booming, it's a thrilling ride to the top. But when things start to slow down, that descent can be stomach-churning. One of the key indicators economists use to track this roller coaster ride is GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. Think of GDP as the economy's report card, a measure of all the goods and services produced in a country. When GDP is growing, it's a sign that businesses are thriving, people are spending, and the economy is healthy. But when GDP shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters, alarm bells start ringing. That's the technical definition of a recession. A shrinking GDP means less economic activity, which can lead to job losses, business closures, and a decline in living standards. It's like a domino effect, with each falling domino representing another part of the economy taking a hit. Remember those images from the Great Depression of people lining up for blocks just to get a bowl of soup or apply for a job? Those images are a stark reminder of the human cost of a recession. When the economy contracts, businesses are forced to make tough decisions. Layoffs become inevitable, and suddenly people who had a steady job, a paycheck, a sense of security, find themselves out of work. Unemployment isn't just about lost income. It's about lost dignity, lost hope, and the fear of not being able to provide for yourself or your family. It can have a devastating impact on individuals, families, and entire communities. The fear of a recession doesn't just affect those who lose their jobs, it casts a long shadow over the entire economy, from Main Street to Wall Street. Consumers, worried about their own financial futures, cut back on spending, further slowing economic growth. Businesses facing declining sales and uncertain prospects postpone investments, cancel expansion plans, and in some cases are forced to close their doors for good. The stock market, a barometer of investor confidence, reacts with wild swings, as fear and uncertainty drive investors to sell off their holdings. The fear of a recession can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, as businesses and consumers alike retrench, further weakening the economy and increasing the likelihood of a downturn. The fear of a recession is like a dark cloud hanging over the economy, creating a sense of uncertainty and anxiety. But it's important to remember that not all recessions are created equal, and economies, like people, are resilient. Governments and central banks have tools at their disposal to try to mitigate the impact of a recession, from fiscal stimulus packages to monetary policy adjustments. Businesses and individuals can also take steps to prepare, from shoring up emergency funds to diversifying income streams. The key is to stay informed, stay calm, and remember that even in the face of economic uncertainty, there is always hope for the future. The tech industry's golden child, Silicon Valley Bank, the bank of choice for startups, venture capitalists, and the tech elite. A symbol of the tech industry's meteoric rise, more than just a bank, a partner and cheerleader. But beneath the surface, cracks were appearing. Like a house of cards, it wouldn't take much to bring it down. The tech industry, for all its innovation, is a fickle beast. Driven by venture capital, it's a world of boom and bust cycles. Silicon Valley Bank was about to face the downside of this volatility. As interest rates rose, the easy money dried up. Startups found it harder to raise capital, valuations plummeted, and tech companies began to lay off workers. For Silicon Valley Bank, this spelled trouble. Their loan portfolio was starting to look shaky. The bank had made risky bets on long-term bonds. The warning signs were there, but few seemed to notice. After all, this was Silicon Valley Bank, the bank that could do no wrong. Remember those old movies where panicked depositors line up outside a bank demanding to withdraw their money? It's a scene straight out of the Great Depression, or so we thought. In the age of online banking, a run on the bank seemed quaint, but that's exactly what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. Panic spread through the tech community. Venture capitalists advised companies to withdraw their money. A digital bank run played out in real time. Depositors rushed to withdraw their funds. Silicon Valley Bank was on the verge of collapse. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank was swift and brutal. In days, the bank went from a tech pillar to a cautionary tale of risk and fragility. The FDIC took control, trying to contain the damage. It was the second largest bank failure in U.S. history. The tech industry, heavily reliant on SVB, was sent reeling. Startups faced the terrifying prospect of not making payroll. The collapse sent shockwaves through the financial system. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even in the interconnected world of global finance, instability can strike quickly and without warning. The aftershocks were felt far and wide, from San Francisco to New York and Washington, D.C. The Federal Reserve took emergency action, providing liquidity and guaranteeing deposits. Investigations were launched, seeking accountability and prevention. The collapse exposed vulnerabilities, raising questions about oversight and risk management. It was a stark reminder that sound banking fundamentals matter. The consequences of failure can be devastating. Imagine a perfect storm brewing. Dark clouds gather, winds howl, and the seas churn. High inflation, recession fears, and disruptions collide in the U.S. economy. These interconnected events strain the system. Like Jenga, each piece removed weakens the structure. The pandemic set the stage. Supply chain snarls and easy money policies bred inflation. The Federal Reserve's rate hikes leave the economy reeling. Silicon Valley Bank's collapse exposed underlying fragility. Americans are left anxious and uncertain about the future. On Main Street, the impact of this economic turmoil is felt acutely. Families already struggling with the rising cost of living are now facing the very real possibility of losing their jobs, their homes, and their livelihoods. The price of everything, from groceries to gas to rent, continues to climb, eating away at paychecks that aren't keeping pace. The American dream, once a promise of upward mobility and a better life, feels increasingly out of reach. Small businesses, the backbone of the American economy, are also feeling the squeeze. rising costs, supply chain disruptions, and a decline in consumer spending are creating a perfect storm that many small businesses may not weather. The economic anxieties that have been simmering since the pandemic are now reaching a boiling point. People are angry, frustrated, and scared, and they're looking for someone to blame. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank wasn't just a tech industry problem, it was a canary in the coal mine for the global economy. The shockwaves are still reverberating, shaking the financial system and global markets. The tech industry, once seen as invincible, seemed vulnerable. Investors grew wary, and the era of easy money seemed to be ending. The ripple effects extended beyond tech, impacting all businesses. Banks tightened lending standards, making credit harder to access. The era of taking risks without consequence was over. The global economy was entering a new era of uncertainty and caution. As the economy teeters on the brink, the blame game is in full swing. Politicians point fingers, economists debate endlessly, and everyday Americans are left wondering who or what is responsible for this economic rollercoaster ride. Some blame the pandemic, arguing that its unprecedented disruption was simply too much for the system to handle. Others point to government spending, claiming that trillions of dollars in stimulus money fueled inflation and created a bubble that was bound to burst. Still, others blame the Federal Reserve, arguing that their easy money policies created an environment of reckless risk-taking, setting the stage for both inflation and the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. The truth, as always, is complex and multifaceted. There's no single villain in this story, but rather a confluence of factors that have combined to create the perfect storm. Section 5. Navigating the storm. Charting a course through economic uncertainty. The U.S. economy is at a crossroads. The path ahead is uncertain, fraught with risk, and full of potential pitfalls. But amidst the doom and gloom, there are also glimmers of hope. For individuals, navigating this storm requires caution and adaptability. Building savings and making informed decisions are crucial. For businesses, staying agile and prioritizing prudence is key. Investing in innovation and efficiency is essential. The road ahead will be bumpy, but by embracing innovation and working together, Americans can navigate this economic storm and emerge stronger. Section 1. Lessons from the brink. The U.S. economy is a wild ride, a roller coaster of booms and busts. We've faced pandemic chaos, soaring inflation, and sudden institutional collapses. It's enough to make anyone want to get off this ride. But amidst the wreckage, there are valuable lessons. Our economic system is not invincible. It's a complex web, susceptible to shocks and disruptions. Section 2. The road ahead, bumpy, but not unnavigable. The road ahead is uncertain, shrouded in economic fog. Inflation and recession fears loom large, but the American economy is resilient. We've faced storms before and emerged stronger. Section 3. Hope on the horizon, the American spirit of resilience. The American spirit is one of innovation, entrepreneurship, and a refusal to give up. It's the spirit that built skyscrapers, put a man on the moon, and transformed how we live. Today, amidst challenges, that spirit thrives. Entrepreneurs launch new businesses, inventors develop groundbreaking technologies, and Americans adapt and thrive. The challenges are real and the road ahead bumpy, but with innovation, fiscal responsibility, and collaboration, we can emerge stronger. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. The American story is one of resilience and emerging stronger. And that story is far from over. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Impact Library.